Hi there, it's David Kramer here with DB-Toolkit. I'm going to give you a video tutorial for the first time. I've previously did an introduction video of some of the new features when version 0.3 came out. But I'm thinking of doing video tutorials rather than the write-up ones, because write-ups take quite a lot of my time to put together, taking screenshots, having to plan ahead of what I want to do, whereas most of the time I just work on the fly, wing it, and figure out as I go along of what I want to do. So what I'm going to do here is just record myself building the application, explain what I'm doing, and hopefully you can learn some of the fundamentals of how DB-Toolkit works. So let's get into it. What I'm going to be building here is a documentation manager for DB-Toolkit. I don't have documentation, as you know, so I'm going to try to have on the site a question submission for you to tell me what topics to cover, because I don't really know what to ask or where to start on a documentation thing. And if you read the forum, you'll see a post there explaining why I'm going to be doing this. So I'm going to record myself building the application so you can see how it works, and you'll be able to use it on the site later on. Or you can build one for your own site if you want to make some documentation readers or whatever. So let's get into it. I'm going to install, we're going to create a new application. Go to DB-Toolkit first, create new application, and we're going to call it Easy Docs. Sounds like a fine name for it, and I'm going to call it Easy Documentation Manager. I don't like typos, I've got so many of them already. Let's create that. Okay, first interface we're going to create is the sections. We're going to split it down into 3 levels. We're going to have a section. In the section we're going to have chapters, and when you click on a chapter you can read the content. It's fairly simple. It's got like basically two tables, multiple interfaces into those 2 tables. So it'll give you an idea of linking things together and making multiple interfaces into one table, so we can edit different parts of an entry at different times. It's quite important to know how to do that, since a lot of applications is generally data management, and sometimes you want to manage different parts of the data at different times. So let's go create our first interface, which is going to be called sections. You can see that I've entered these titles in before because I was previously creating it and I want to record it, so I removed everything I did so I could record it, because it was a nice idea to make a tutorial out of it. So the title is called Sections. The description will be Manage Sections for Documentation. Our menu group is going to be under Edit. The menu group is at the top of here. When you open the app, you see menu options so you can work on it. It just makes it easy to navigate between interfaces. Menu label will be sections. We don't need to worry about it. It's not going on the dashboard, it's not going in the admin menu, it doesn't need a shortcode. So we're just going to go to our field setup. We're going to go and add a new one. Let me just check something here. Let's go add a new one. We're going to call it Easy Docs Section, because that's going to be handling all the different sections. Right. Automatically creates our index ID, or our primary field, which is our auto increment ID. It keeps the rows nice and unique. Great. Okay, our first field we're going to create is section title. Did I get that right? Yeah, title. We're going to add that in. That title is going to be basically just text. We're going to type in the item, so it's going to be a single text field. We're not changing any prefixes or suffixes, and we're going to be viewing that so we can see it. I'm going to add another field called section order. This is so the list of sections won't be alphabetical. It doesn't necessarily follow in alphabetical order, so we want to be able to have a way of ordering the sections in our list. So this is also going to be a single text input, since we're going to be just giving it a number. I do want to make an integer input text field type sometime, but until then we're going to just use this. Okay, section order is going to be a small field, so we're going to adjust that width to be 60. Centralize it, and I like to have uppercase titles for it. Actually, let's just call it order. This doesn't change the field name in the database, it just changes our viewing name. So it's still going to be called section order but in the database, but when we see it we're going to see order and it's only on this interface. We might want to show it sometime as whatever else, whatever title we want to give it. So let's just call this one section title, and this one's going to be automatic width. By having nothing, that will automatically adjust the width according to take up the rest of the space of less than 60, and that works in pixels. So general settings. Okay, it's going to be a list mode. Add entry is fine. Actually, just change this to section. It looks a bit neater. 20 items per page is fine. We want to see the toolbar. We don't need to see filters. Just uncheck all these for the sake of it so I can see that they're not being shown. We're not going to have a reloader. We're not going to have to export the list. There's no point in that. No plugins needed. Plugins are additional export buttons or different buttons. I haven't made any really yet, but the functionality is there for future use. Select option means select all and delete, which is bad at times because you can delete an entire page of entries. We want to see the edit button. We don't need to see a view because we don't have any hidden fields that we want to see by viewing the full features, so it's going to be edit and delete on there. We'll show the footer because it's nice to have entry inserted. All this is all fine for now. Keep it on default, it's pretty generic. Show reset, and that's great. Permissions, this is going to be an administrator only panel, so let's make it activate plugin. We'll have the same capabilities of activating plugins, and nothing else needs to be done. We can go and save that, and there we go. We've created our first interface to manage our sections. So action, action is over there. Let's go create one called getting started. That's our first section, which is number 1 in the list. And there we go. We've got our getting started section. It's order number 1, and there we can go and edit it to change if we want, or we can delete it if we don't want it. Right. Now we're going to create our chapters. So let's go back to App Builder, create a new interface. You could also click over there if you want. We'll go this way because it's keeping what we're doing. And we're going to call this one chapters. Description is manage chapters for documentation. Menu group is also edit. Menu label is called chapters. All this can be blank, the same as the other one. And we're going to call this one easy docs chapter. And again, it creates our table with our primary field. Auto increment to keep it all nice and unique. We don't need to show it. Default value means it's going to just do what the database needs for that field, which is automatically increment and give it a new value as it goes on. Adding 1 afterwards. Okay, we're going to call this one chapter title. Add field. We're going to let me just finish off this field first. We want to see the chapter title. We want it to be a single text input where we can type in the title. And let's make it uppercase chapter title because it looks neater. Okay, next field is section, because a chapter will be associated to a section, and this is going to be a join. So we're going to join this to the section table, and we want to view the value field is what we see in the list, which is going to be the section title. And we've got title order. Okay, so we're going to save the ID in the database, view the title. That's great. And let's make that sortable as well, just for the sake of it. And let's make it a filter so we can see all chapters for that section. And let's make it a single select as well. Single select means that we can only select one section at a time from the filters, not multiple. Save. Close that setup. Let's go to our general settings. It's going to be fairly the same as the sections. We're going to say add chapter. No, it's not chapter. Chapter there. We're going to have 20 the same. Show the toolbar. We're going to show the filters on this one. We don't need to show the keyword filter because it's not going to be text-based searching. It's going to be just purely a drop-down. We don't need to see a reloader or an exporter, and don't need plugins. Don't need mass deleting. Edit. We want to see the edit. View. We don't need to view it because all the data is there in one list. Delete. We don't need to have inline actions. We're going to have the little icons at the end. Inline actions means you'll have text-based edit and delete buttons underneath it when you hover over. footer is fine, all this is fine as default, and we're going to say save. Oh, I forgot, I wanted to change that, the permissions to be administrator, so let's go change the permissions to an administrator level and save that. Great. So now when I go to view, I can then go and add a chapter, which is going to be called introduction, and that falls under the getting started. So save that. So now you've got introduction, getting started, which we've just created. Now you can see the filters over here, so we can say all chapters under getting started, which will be the introduction which we've already got. So that's working fine. Let's clear that. And now to save the content. The content is going to be essentially the chapter. The chapter is going to be a title, and you're going to see on the list. And when you click on that chapter, it will bring up the content of that chapter in the right hand side of the column when we eventually have it on our front page. So we can do it two ways. We can create a new interface connected to a new table called content and then associate it to a chapter. So when you click on the chapter, it will load it up. But the problem with that is we could possibly create multiple content boxes or content blocks per chapter, which might be a good idea, but it might be a bit superfluous in this example. So what we're going to do is add onto the chapters a field into there called content. And that way, when we're in the list, we'll only show the chapter title. And when you edit that, when you click on it to make it a clickable item underneath our administrator panel, it will take us to a form mode interface with just an edit field to edit the content. So that way we've got nice panels working together. We're linking one interface to another to edit different areas of the same table. So what we're going to do first is create a new interface. We're going to call this one sorry, content. Let's call it chapter content, and this is called edit document under chapter. There we go. And we're not going to have a navigation to this. The navigation is going to be done from one interface to another, so the item will link to it by using passback fields. I'll explain that a bit more later as we go along. So let's go down to our field setup, and we're going to select our chapters table that we created earlier. Now we're going to leave these two as default value. What default value does is uses the value that the database already knows about. It doesn't have an input field. So if you leave it on default value, like I said, and we loaded up the form will be blank, because the default value tells the database to use whatever it's got in there already. If there's nothing, it will use the value the database has set as default. In the auto increment example, there's no value being submitted, so the database will automatically populate that field with its default value, which is the next value higher than what it's already got, auto increment. So it also works like a chapter title. If I had to save a form while editing more data over here, or editing an entry in there, and the title is at default value, it won't write over that title with blank. It will leave the title intact. So we're going to only be editing the content. Now the content isn't there, so we're going to go and add a field called content, or let's call it chapter content. And this is going to be a WYSIWYG editor. I know it's buggy. Some people have mentioned that there's a few bugs, but I'm going to get to that. Since I'm going to be using this now, I'm going to have time to find a bit more of the bugs and actually work on it. I'm not too sure what they are. There's something to do with an image and something to do with linking, making links that wasn't working fine. But for now, I'll just quickly go through this. I don't need any of these fields. I want to have just a very standard kind of interface. I really got to work on these highlights. That little black ring isn't well enough. I want to make it like this green that I added in recently. I don't need links. I'm not going to have linking in there. I might have images. No styles needed. Format I'll keep. Font size no. Maximize is nice to edit with. and that's all very well. Okay, I'm not showing any because this is going to be a form, not a list. This I to show a value is only used in lists or templates. So let's go to our general settings, and this is going to be a form mode. And the add new item, this is never going to be used as an add item, it's only ever going to be an edit. So this is almost irrelevant to be kept, irrelevant to be filled in this piece over here. So let's skip that. There's no toolbar necessary, we don't have to do anything there. Show edit, yes, because this form is going to be editable. It's going to be used as an edit form. If this was unchecked, every time I link to it, it will be just an add new item form. It will never load up an item to edit. So it's going to be edit, view is fine, delete is fine, uncheck it, it's not really necessary, it's not even going to be used. The save, well, we're going to have to change the update success to chapter updated, because that's going to be the dialog that pops up to say once we hit save. The update button is going to be save changes, and that's fine, and we're going to save that. Yeah, let's hit save. Alright, if I review this now, we'll just see a normal capture form, which is pretty much fine, but I don't like the way this is doing. This is running in auto mode. It generally stacks all of the fields that are actually usable one on top of each other. So we're going to make this look a bit neater. I'm going to go to the form layout, insert a row. I want this form to be a bit wider than that, so let's make it 850, and I'm going to put just my content in there. Great, so now it'll be nice and neater. One more thing also, it was doubling the title, because in form mode you see the form title. So I'm going to just hide that frame quickly and save that, and now you'll see it's just that. That's all there is. Chapter content, chapter content. Yeah, it's a bit of a replication. So let's just take off this text because we don't need it. So let's go quickly and take that title out and leave it blank. That should be nice and neat. As I said, that's just purely for visible. There we go. Right. Don't need the reset button, we can do that later. Now, to get the data there, we're going to go back into our chapters and make those each entry clickable, linking to the edit form of it, so we can edit the data from it. So we're going to go to our redirects there, take the interface from AZDocs chapters and link it to chapter content and save, and that's all we need to do. Oh, let me just go back to that quickly. I want to show you something. You'll see under field setup we got our passback value, which is our chapter ID. This is a primary. This is a unique value. Since it auto increments, every time you create an entry, it will have a new ID associated that's unique. And that's important to return. So when we go to the form, it knows exactly which item we're editing. So it's not randomly saving data into the database. It knows exactly which entry we're updating with the new content. So that's important. You also notice that the chapter content is now here because we added in another instance. And its default value, which means don't do anything. There's nothing there. This interface will not handle this field at all. It will let the database handle it however it wants to. So just leave that blank as you see it. Leave it as a default, non-shown, non-filtered, nothing. Right, save that. Let's go to our chapters, and you will see now this is a link. It's clickable, so it clicks through to this form. And if you look at the top in the address bar here, you see AZDocs chapter ID 1. So now this form is editing the entry number 1. So if I had to go, let me go to get some dummy text from my wonderful site of dummy text generator, and I'm going to copy this, and let's go and paste that in there. And this was for, I think it was our introduction, and let's make that into a heading 2 so it looks nice and snazzy. Right, now saying chapter updated, close, and we can go back to our chapters, and when we click on that we see the same content, so now it's been edited. Right, let's create another chapter called introduction. Let's call this one installing DB-Toolkit, and that falls under getting started, and save that. I'm seeing something I missed here. Okay, now that it's created it, it immediately takes me to the content. So now I've created it, and I'm going to be editing my content. So let's copy a different block of text so it doesn't look like the same, and paste it there. And we're going to go to installing DB-Toolkit and call that heading number 2. And that looks pretty neat. Let's save those changes. Chapters updated, and we can go back to our chapters and see there. Right, so there's our two chapters under getting started. One thing I want to add over here is chapter order. So let's go to edit there and add a new field called chapter order. Field. Let's move that above content just to be neat. I'm going to make this into a single text field, make it visible, and let's make it sortable so we can sort up ascending and descending, and can go and save that. Right, now when we click on view, our chapter order is blank, so let's go create this, edit it. Now the field is already there, and installing is number 1. Close. Remember, we made the save or the form redirect, so now I'm redirecting back to this one. I could quite easily put those field types over here as well, so I could go manage it, which is actually quite a good idea. So let's go to our form layout, add another row, split this into 2, drop this down below, sync the fields, put the chapter title there, put the section there. Actually, let's make another row, put that down there, split this into 2, put the section there. Chapter title can be one big one up there, put that there. Chapter order there, and let's go and make this one 30% by 70%. Save that. Check something. It's 30. Yes, it's 30. Let's go down to there. Occasionally this reverts back to 50, and you might see a bit of issues, but you can always just go back and edit that if it happens. It's a bug I'm trying to solve. Okay, let's go and view that. Okay, it's blank because we're still in default, so there's no vet, it won't create a form field. So let's make our section join table, down to sections, show our title, little text field, and save that. And let's see what we come up with. This is what I was talking about. It reverts it back to 50% instead of, or even less than that. Let's quickly just rearrange that and sort out that bug. It generally works on the second run. So there's a 50 that keeps putting it down, so let's make that 30 again and save it. I think I know where that problem is, and I'll get on to fixing it as soon as I can. Let's just view that. No, it's not liking it. Oh, it is like, no, it isn't. It did. You can still see it inside there. The problem is that the order is a default value and we don't see a form field. So let's make that into text and save that. And there we go. It's a chapter order like that. This is now a capture form. I could technically use this to create a new chapter, but I'd prefer to use this method over here, because then I can see the ones I've got while I'm creating a new one. So if I edit this one and give it its order number 2, and I hit save, it'll take us to the form to edit, and we'll see a revision of what we've created. And we can go and change our content. Great, and that's that. So we've essentially finished creating our management section for our documents. It's pretty much complete. So now I can go and create a new section called Getting Started, and let's call Application Management, order number 2. So we created a new section, Application Management, order 2. This ordering isn't working correctly, so it's still ordering by ID. Let's go and adjust that to order by section order, ascending, and save. And when we go to our sections to view, it'll be ordering 1, 2, which is much nicer, so we can see it in the order that we're going to be working with. Let's create another section called interface management, which I'm probably not going to keep these sections as just examples so you can see how it works. And then that's done. Let's go down to our chapters and let's create a new chapter called Creating Applications. No, the title is called Creating a New Application. Okay, and it's going to go into application management. There's all our sections, and this is number 2. No, it's going to be number 1. Let's save that. And then we've got it over here, all our content. Just still should have text pasted. Make it a bit bigger. Let's go creating a new application. Let's just make that into heading number 2. And that's great. We can save those changes there. The reason why I've made another interface to this is because my content area is much bigger. If I was to put this in a dialog, it would be very difficult to manage. Whereas over here, I can resize the window and scroll down and work within a nice environment. And I've also got this full screen mode, so I can work like this, which is a much nicer thing to work with. So let's just keep it like that, and we can go to that sections. We can keep on adding our sections, and that's essentially the entire application, or the administration of it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this first chapter of building an application. I'm going to make a second chapter, but just to keep the videos nice and small, and the second chapter will be putting this all together on a front-end user level. This is the administration side, and we're going to make it more for the consumer side of things, which will be on the front end of our website, which will have no capturing or editing capabilities, but purely viewing and reading. And we'll see that one next. Thank you very much.